Welcome to this week's edition of Right on the Money. I'm Rebecca Powers, and here with Tom Mosley. We call him the Professor, and thank you, Tom, for always having me with you on your show each week.
Hey, I wait to film these things when you're going to be available, so I'm really glad to have you as well.
Thank you. It's so much fun. Last week we talked about, as we always do, the ways to retire right. The pieces you need, the advice you need. There are so many tax advantages you can take, so many things. But we want to talk this week about legacy. And the definition of legacy is what it means, what you will be remembered by. Once people avoid risk and get their blueprint, what do you think is their biggest goal with their legacy? What can they do with that legacy?
Well, you know, Rebecca, you're not going to be surprised because you've done so many shows with me already. Everybody has a little bit different legacy. I literally have people who say, I want to spend every penny that I've got, and I want the check that my kids have to write to put me into the ground to bounce. I mean, I think they stole that from a movie. And then I have other people who come and they literally will not enjoy their retirement because they want to save every penny that they can to pass it along to their kids, or sometimes to parents who are still alive and who are living into very, very high ages. I mean, the other day I had a couple that were in their middle 70s, and they had to cut the appointment short because they got a call from her mom and dad who are in their upper 90s to go take care of them.
Wow.
So people are living longer and longer. So this idea of legacy, you said something very, very perceptive when you were introducing the subject. You said, when people have a plan.
Yeah.
I want to tell you, it's very difficult to get people to spend their money for two reasons. Number one, it's difficult for them to spend their money because they don't have a plan that gives them any kind of confidence that they're not going to run out of money in their lifetime.
Right.
One of the first things we do when we build a retirement blueprint, we call it a retirement house that we build, and the foundation of the house is income. So if people get an understanding that they're going to have guaranteed increasing income for the rest of their life and they don't have to worry about it, and then they take care of inflation, because that's part of income, and then the next thing up the house as you're building the house up is investments. Then you can take those investments and you can say, this is what I want to happen with that, either in my lifetime, as I pass, or after I'm gone. Okay, the second thing that is hard to get people to spend their money is because they've always been savers.
Yeah.
You think about it. The people who are good at building a lumberyard are terrible at spending their money in retirement. We have a wall in our office that we're going to dedicate this next year to, hey, follow us all over the world, and we're going to get our clients to send us pictures of them at the canals in Venice.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, and just show where they are able to go.
And we'll print out a little thing of your face, and instead of "Where's Waldo," it'll be like "Where's Mosley?" And everywhere you'll go, you can take a picture in Venice with your face.
It's where they're going, okay? Not where I'm going.
Well, you help them get there.
I might be able to work out a deal where I go with them. I'd like to go with them.
I don't think they were really.
You don't think they'd like that, okay? But they've been savers literally all their life is the reason they amassed enough money to do things, and now they don't want to do things because they don't know how to turn off being a saver.
But you also said that big thing, they're scared of running out of money. I mean, what a terrible feeling. You watch in the news and you're looking at all the risk going on, but you can mitigate your risk.
Right.
And longevity, you said people living long, that's one of those risks as well.
Yeah, the good news is we have less saved for retirement than the previous generation because of pensions and other things.
Yeah.
The bad news is we're living a lot longer.
Right.
So, you know, it's just...
and Social Security is kind of...
maybe insolvent. I always used to say, no, it'll never be insolvent. But then there's some things that have happened in the past few months and years, and you don't know what's going to happen because it may not be able to be solvent. I think it will, but you never know. So let's talk about... A lot of people don't realize they can live out part of their legacy while they're here.
Okay.
And they can actually take some time and enjoy it right now. I have people, let me give you some examples. I have clients who occasionally they'll call me up, especially here in Southern California with the price of housing, especially with interest rates going high the way they've gone right now. Recently, I've had a couple who've called up and said, Tom, can we afford and still have income for ourselves? Can we afford to take $50,000 one person and $68,000 was the other person? That was the amount they wanted, and give it to our kids. give it to our children so that they can match it with what they had saved for a down payment on a house, because it's so expensive.
Yeah.
And these people are able to then see their children get into a house and enjoy it with their very own eyes.
That's wonderful.
And they're able to experience it, to see it, to go visit them with it, and feel like, hey, I've had a part of that. And there's a way to gift that so it's done the right way. And we help our people do that. That might be one legacy that you want to leave that you can see. The other thing is, I've had grandparents come recently, and with the price of education going up, escalating, they've actually been able to pay for their grandchildren's education through either a 529 or some of the other vehicles that I think many times are more advantageous than a 529 plan, which is a savings plan for education. The other thing that I see, though, and I got to experience this, and this is what I can't wait to tell you. I got to experience this last month. A lot of people take trips with their extended family together while they're still here. Now, that leaves a legacy. Like you said, it's a memory.
Yeah.
It's something that you're going to be remembered for. Last month, we got to go as a family. There were 9 of us. It wasn't my whole family, but 9 of us got to go to Cape Coral, Florida, and we rented an Airbnb. And I grew up there for about 4 years of my life, way back in the 60s. And I took them around and bored them by showing them where I lived. But we also went down to the Everglades, and we went 18 miles out into the Everglades one way.
Fun.
And we saw alligators and blue herons. And I mean, we were in the wilds. It was really cool. Now, on that boat, there were 6 adults in my family and my 5-year-old granddaughter, Colette, and I call her Coco. And she had the time of her life. We came back to Everglades City, and we ate at a restaurant, and we were right there. There was a rail there, and we were up. But an alligator came as close to us as where you are.
Wow.
About a 10-foot alligator, and just swam by. And I have a picture of Colette going like this. Well, the next morning, she and I are the only ones up. And I fed her breakfast. And she's sitting there, and she's not addressing me, but she's just talking in general, reflecting, and she said, "Yesterday was the best day of my life."
Oh.
And not to cry on TV, but I'm
I was
almost
just gonna
ready
say,
to
gonna
do
make
it.
me cry. That's so
It's
sweet.
like, what would I pay for that?
Yeah.
Well, the cost
Priceless.
with the flights and the Airbnb is probably
Yeah.
$10,000 or $12,000, and I could have saved all of that money.
Yeah.
And I could have given it to my kids and let them experience whatever they wanted to experience after I'm gone, and maybe they would think about me and maybe they wouldn't. But there was Coco just reflecting among herself, saying, yesterday was the best day of my life. Look, some of you, if you had a plan, you would feel more free to spend some of that money while you're still alive,
Yes.
either giving it for education, either helping your children in different ways, or going on trips with them. Now, this is coming from the heart because I just experienced that. You need a plan that will allow you to do that. And you need somebody that will help you set that up. So you can't just start giving money away, because I do have some clients that their kids hit on them all the time,
Right.
so that they get their money early, and it's my inheritance, why can't they go ahead and give it to me type attitude. It's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You choosing how you're going to be remembered for memories you create in your lifetime while you're still here. And I'm positive in Colette's mind, Coco's going to remember that trip forever, and being right by those alligators as we were in that big airboat going across the Everglades. You can have those memories too. You just need a plan. Now, that's what we do with the Retirement Blueprint. What you need to do is call in 866-709-1462, set up an appointment with one of our advisors. We will sit down and look at your situation, and possibly, depending on what you've saved, we can possibly position yourself so that before you leave, you can be a giver and you can be an enjoying person of all of those assets that you've created. But you've got to get up and you've got to call us. You've got to take the first step of doing that. We want to help you not just amass a lot of money, because listen, some of the people who have the most money that we work with are some of the most unhappy people. We want you to have your money grow for a purpose. We want you to know your money's going to last for a purpose, and that purpose is so you can enjoy it the way you want to, and every single one of you is going to have a little bit different ways that you want to enjoy it. You got to call us, 866-709-1462.
And that's why it's so important to get your very own individual blueprint, because as Tom said, everyone is different, and he is an independent, not like the big box experience that you may have experienced in the past. There's the number again, 866-709-1462. Call us now and get your reserved time. And stay with us more on Your Legacy with Tom Mosley right after this.
How confident are you in your current financial plan? Do you know with certainty how the recent market volatility will affect your future hopes and dreams? How much are you paying in taxes? And how much are you losing to unnecessary high fees? You didn't work to save this money so that you could spend your time worried in retirement. Now is the time to take charge of your finances so you can feel confident about your future. Call in during the next 30 minutes of today's show only to set up an absolutely complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review that will result in your own customized written plan that we're giving away complimentary to the first 10 people who respond. We'll start with a full-blown analysis of what you already have. By running a report to untangle how much you are currently paying in fees, how you're allocated for risk, and what it's costing to work with your current advisor. Next, we'll identify your goals. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Where do you want to go, and who do you hope to go there with? Is your current financial plan set up to get you there without mishap? Let's design a roadmap to create a financial plan you can follow with confidence. Get the piece that so many people are missing from their retirement. Find out how having a written plan can make a difference to your retirement dreams. Call now to schedule your complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review today.
All right, welcome back. We were talking about your legacy. You can enjoy it now. You can give it to your children. What about the tax? I'm curious in my mind, my next question, and we had to take a break, was, can you, like that trip that you took with your family, or if you give $15,000, let's say, to your daughter or granddaughter, can you write that off directly on taxes? Is it dollar for dollar?
The trip, you can't, okay? Because that's something that you go and you enjoy, and you know, you just give it the, I guess technically you could give them the money, let them buy their tickets, and because here's the deal. You are legally able to give someone $15,000, $16,000 a year in that range.
Anyone or just your descendants?
Anyone.
Anyone.
You can give anyone. You can write a check for the maximum amount that year, and you can give it to anyone. Now, I tell people sometimes if you're in December and you want to give your children, you want to give them $60,000 and they're married, you and your husband want to give them $60,000 legally, you can do it. Here's how you do it.
Okay.
So, IRS, forget what I'm about to tell you because you'll probably change the rules once you hear this. But it's, Rebecca, it's individual to individual. So like if you and your husband wanted to give one of your sons and a daughter-in-law $60,000, you could write your son a check for 15, 16. You could write your daughter-in-law a check for 15 or 16. Your husband could write your son a check for 15, let's just say 15.
Okay.
And your husband could write your daughter-in-law a check for 15. You're totally legal.
Huh.
You're totally legal. Now, can you drive down the freeway at a 65-mile-an-hour speed limit and go 70 and not get caught?
I kind of do it all the time.
Okay, but if you do, you're still illegal, right?
Yeah.
So why not do it legally and just do it that way? Because I don't, it's not a matter of getting caught. And you say, well, why do I have to go to the trouble of 4 checks when I can just do 1? So, you know, you have to do that so that you can abide by the rules as they are. Now, if you do that in December, guess what? You can do it again
in January.
In January for the next year.
The next year.
So you can double the amount that you can give us. So, but you need to be in. Here's why. In case you've been in a cave somewhere, they have passed legislation recently where they're going to add another 87,000 IRS agents. So I've always wanted to be clean. I tell my accountant, I don't care if you take cuts that are all legal, but do not do anything that's questionable. And I've had even my friends say, you could pay a lot less in taxes if you went to you need to do it legally.
Right, absolutely.
Do it legally. We're not trying to cut corners or be illegal or do something that's going to get you in trouble. But you can pass an awesome amount of money to your children and do it legally. And it's the same thing as writing one check. Oh, they get the same amount of money. You just have to do it the right way.
So is it dollar for dollar? Let's say I owe $15,000 this year for my taxes. Could I give $15,000 and I pay my daughter instead of the IRS?
That is something that you're going to have to go through your tax return.
Yeah.
And it's not that you save on the money you're going to have to pay the IRS.
Okay.
You're going to be able to reduce what your earnings are
Gotcha.
as you pass it along. Now, sometimes gifts are also not tax deductible. It's just a gift that you have to give. So there's some people who don't qualify for the tax deductibility. So that's where you need to discuss your own individual situation. It may be tax deductible, it might not, and that's where your particular situation. And I have to I have to hasten to tell you, I am not a tax attorney.
That's right.
I just do know you can gift your children an awesome amount of money, and you can do it legally and not get yourself in trouble.
And that's part of legacy. You always tell really great stories. I know that you're a teacher, so you love to teach, but you have the great analogy about the difference between a CPA, who talk about that, and the difference between tax planning. Because I've had girlfriends say, oh, I don't need a tax planner. Brooke is my CPA. And you said, no, they're two entirely different things.
Yep.
Talk about that analogy with the car driving down the road.
I've got a CPA who's one of my really good friends. We served on a ministry team at our church here in 𝘷𝘀𝘧𝘕 for like 5 years together. So we're very close. But he calls me when it comes to my accounts twice a year. Tom, get your stuff in February. Tom, I got your stuff ready in March. And he's got my tax return done. And so he's always looking, if you think about it, a tax return is always looking in the rearview mirror. He's never talked to me about gifting to any of my kids. He's never asked me if I've ever written a check to my kids. He's never come up with an idea where I could gift my kids something and it be tax deductible. He's just always interested in looking at the rearview mirror, getting the taxes done, and the emphasis is pay as little as you possibly can.
Right.
There may be a way that if you're driving down the road of retirement, instead of looking at the rearview mirror all the time, you look out the windshield and you say, how can we pay more tax now maybe, but less tax overall?
Later.
Less tax in the long run, and that's the whole bottom line. When somebody comes in to do the retirement blueprint, one of the key 6 things we do is taxes, and one of the things we do when we're analyzing your tax situation is we take your tax return, we're able to look at it where we take how much money you've got in qualified money like IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, 457s, and we can show you that if you'll harvest out of that each year X amount of dollars and maybe stay within your tax return, within your tax level, within if you're 12%, maybe stay there. If you're in 22% taxable, then maybe stay there. But you're able to, over a period of time, convert that from a forever taxed IRA into a never taxed Roth IRA, and then you leave it to your spouse. You're talking about leaving it in a legacy.
Right.
When you leave something that's still got to be taxed, that can be something that's not really the gift that you think it needs to be.
Right.
Because it adds to your spouse, and then their tax rate's cut in half the year after you pass away, or it then leaves to your children, and for the last 3 years they've changed the law, and you now have to pass that out of that IRA within 10 years. A big tax burden. So leaving it to your children in the way that maybe not all CPAs are looking for, but a planning person who's saying, how can we build a blueprint for you for retirement where you pay the least amount of tax possible. That sounds great.
In your whole life.
In your whole life.
And he's shown me some numbers. This is hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially.
It's usually less than half that you'll end up having to pay with a plan that we put together for you, as opposed to just the plan the government has for you for taking it out over your lifetime.
Exactly. Do you want your plan or do you want the government's plan? No offense, but they're not looking out for you. I mean, we have, what, 30-something trillion in debt, so the money's got to come from somewhere.
Yeah, well, we've been on this show for 20 minutes now, so it's probably higher than that now. Hey, give us a call, 866-709-1462. We can't help you unless you reach out to us, 866-709-1462.
And get your complimentary retirement blueprint. Stay with us more right after this.
As a good saver, you've been putting away money during your working years. Studies find that the biggest fear of retirees is running out of money. Market volatility isn't just the downward movement of stock prices, it's the size and frequency of change. The more dramatic the ups and downs, the higher the volatility. This can put savers who are newly retired or a few years away from being retired at greater risk. Today's generation of retirees is not receiving traditional pensions as our parents or grandparents did. Instead, we have retirement accounts such as 401ks or 403bs. These accounts typically expose your money to market risk. The last thing you want right before retirement is to lose a portion of the money you need for income. But how do you turn these accounts into a retirement income? Is it safe to keep all your retirement money sitting in the stock market? The last thing you want is to lose a portion of the money you need for income due to market loss. By working with a financial professional, you can learn how to turn a portion of your savings into an income stream for life and income for the life of your spouse if you're married. We all have moments in our lives when we wish we had taken action sooner. Don't let procrastination reign on your retirement parade. Act now before it's too late. Please call our office to set up your no-cost, no-obligation retirement income review today.
Welcome back to Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. We were talking about legacy this week. Legacy means what you can leave, what your family will remember you by. So what are those? I know no one likes to think about when they're going to die, but you have to plan it. And that's also one of the things you do in the blueprint, the beneficiaries, your life insurance, all that. What do people need to do to prepare for that passing?
Well, just breaking down what you said right there, people don't like to talk about it. I mean, there are certain cultures that they won't even discuss it with you, you know, a legacy, because that's what they've learned growing up, and they've got an aversion against life insurance because they say, well, some people say it'll never help me, and they're not vicious people and not trying to leave something to their family, but they just don't understand it, and so life insurance might be something. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Well, when you do pass away, and by the way, when you come in to see us, all of my advisors are highly skilled at one thing, and they are experts at one particular thing. They can build you a perfect retirement blueprint if you can bring into them the exact date you're going to pass away. So if you know exactly when you're going to pass away, we can take your lumber yard and build. I mean, it's perfect. It'll, but we don't know.
Right.
And as I said earlier, people are living longer and longer and longer. So whether you're 40, like we talked about last week with Jared on the program, or whether you're 25, like some of our clients who they come in and they're the children of our current clients, and they say, you're doing such a good job for them. Can you help my client, my child get started? Whatever age you are, you also need to build in just a little bit. What if I pass? Particularly if you have a family, if you have a spouse, if you have children, you need to build in some things that prepares you. Number one, you need in most cases, you need a trust.
Yeah.
If you've got a house, it doesn't have a beneficiary on it. An IRA, it's got a beneficiary. It'll go to whomever you've named for the beneficiary. A Roth, a 401k, you've named beneficiaries on all of that. Be careful. I had a client come in one time and they had named somebody as the beneficiary. It was their previous wife. And then they'd been married for 20 years and they got ready to retire after 30 years. And I asked this lady, I said, who's Beverly? And she said, that's his first wife. Why? And I said, well, she's the beneficiary. I told her, I said, don't kill him tonight because you know, literally that beneficiary passes directly. But a house or a brokerage account. I'm amazed at how many brokerage statements I see from big box firms who just haven't gone to the trouble of setting a joint account. And that means it's in your name and your spouse's name. And they haven't put it into a trust, even though the trust name, and that'll protect it from another 4-letter word, probate. And it'll keep it from going through the system. Now, probate will get the asset to the person that it should go to. Don't get me wrong. I have had people say, well, do I really need a trust? Won't it get to my children anyway? Right, it'll get there after going through the cost of probate court, probate judge, ads in the newspaper, or a probate attorney, that you're all paying for that out of the estate. It's much cheaper to decide beforehand and put a trust together so that they carry out your dictates and what you want in retirement, and it passes to the people in a much more advantageous way. Again, if it's got a beneficiary on that, you can name that person and it goes directly to them. But a house doesn't, a brokerage account that's in a joint situation doesn't. A lot of things don't do that. So you need to be proactive. Again, I don't do trust because I'm not an attorney. We can refer that out to people, but it's something you need to address. And I briefly touched on it too, life insurance. Particularly if you're younger or even if you're older. A lot of times people will pass away and they're in their 60s or their 70s or even in their 80s, and 5 years ago or 10 years ago they picked up one of these small little final expense policies. You got to be careful for those, because if you get them through, and I don't want to name the organization, but they're really good on retirement people, those have a few tricks in them. You need to get it from a reputable company. But maybe a $15,000 policy. You say, what can $15,000 do? When you pass away, there's emotional stress. There's the stress of sometimes the family starts fighting over what you have. And if there's no fighting over who's going to pay for the funeral because you've already got that taken care of, I tell you, that sounds like a weird thing, but when that happens to you and your family, and if you've ever been there with parents, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Everything we talk about on this show, we can help you with. But we're not mind readers to know your phone number. That's the one thing we fail on, okay? You have to call in and let us know, hey, Tom, I'd like to talk to somebody on your staff, one of your advisors, about life insurance or a trust or this thing. The number, 866-709-1462. That's 866-709-1462. We can talk about this or any other thing that we've talked on this or any other show, but you have to reach out to us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tom, and thank you at home for joining us. Remember, you can go to our website as well to look for some wonderful educational seminars that are also complimentary. Get your complimentary retirement blueprint, and we'll see you again next week.